Elian Emery's day had already been a mess when he saw the silver key hit the concrete. He was juggling a grocery bag with one arm and carrying his 5-year-old daughter, Ava, on his hip when the woman brushed past him, clearly in a rush, her heels clicking fast against the sidewalk. The key had fallen from her tote without her noticing. Elian stopped, adjusted Ava higher on his side, then bent down to pick it up. "Daddy," she dropped something, Ava murmured, her cheek against his shoulder. "I know, sweetheart," Elian said, already turning on his heel. The woman had made it halfway to a black car idling at the curb, its driver holding the door open. She didn't notice him until he called out, "Hey, excuse me, you dropped this." She spun quickly, her eyes flashing with surprise. Her lipstick was a sharp red, her dark hair sleek and pulled off her face in a tight twist. But it wasn't the expensive clothes or the driver or the way she carried herself like she didn't have time to breathe that caught Elian off guard. It was the look in her eyes. Tired, distracted, lonely. He held the key out toward her. "I think it's yours." She blinked, then glanced down. Her expression changed instantly, relief, followed by something softer. "Oh, wow. Yes, thank you." "No problem," he said, offering a small smile. "Would have been a pain if you lost it." Ava leaned over slightly to look at the woman. "You almost left it on the ground," she said matter-of-factly. The woman's lips twitched. "I guess I got lucky." "Not lucky," Ava said, pointing a small finger. "My daddy saw it." The woman looked at Elian again, a little longer this time. "Well then, I owe you both a thank you." "You don't owe us anything," Elian replied quickly, adjusting Ava again. "Have a good day." She hesitated. "Wait, let me at least buy you a coffee or something. I was in such a rush I didn't even notice I dropped it." He shook his head. "Really, it's fine. We're just on our way home." "Please," she said, stepping closer. "It would make me feel better." Elian paused. His instinct was to say no. It had been a long day. He'd spent the morning doing delivery runs, then picked up Ava from preschool, then stopped to grab groceries. He was tired, his t-shirt had a juice stain on it, and the last place he belonged was wherever this woman usually had coffee. But something about her expression made him pause. "I'm Zariah Rowe," she said, holding out her hand. "Just one coffee. No strings." He hesitated, then shifted Ava to his other arm and shook her hand. "Elian, this is Ava." Ava gave a shy little wave. Zariah smiled. "Nice to meet you both." The coffee shop she picked was 3 blocks away and looked too fancy for someone in sneakers and a faded hoodie, but Zariah didn't seem to notice. She ordered a latte and got Ava a hot chocolate and a giant cookie. Elian went for plain black coffee, mostly to keep it simple. "So," Zariah said once they were settled at a small table near the window, "what do you do?" Elian gave a half shrug. "A little bit of everything. Delivery, odd jobs. I used to do construction before Ava was born, but things changed." She nodded like she understood. "And her mom?" "Not around." Zariah didn't press. "Well, she's lucky to have you." Elian glanced over at Ava, who was licking whipped cream off her cup. "I'm the lucky one." "You're a good dad." The words caught him off guard. He didn't expect that from someone like her. She looked like she belonged in boardrooms and black cars, not small cafes with guys like him. "Thanks," he said, unsure how to respond. Zariah sipped her coffee, watching him. "You're not like most people I meet." He raised a brow. "Is that a good thing?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, it is." They talked for almost an hour. About nothing and everything. Zariah asked questions about Ava, about what Elian liked to do, about the best places in the city for picnics. Elian asked a few things back, but Zariah was vague. She mentioned something about work and a lot of meetings, but never said exactly what she did. He didn't push. When they finally left, Elian carried Ava, who'd fallen asleep halfway through her cookie. "Thank you," Zariah said again at the curb, where her car waited. "For the key. And the company." "Anytime," Elian said, adjusting Ava's weight. Zariah opened her purse, pulled out a sleek card, and handed it to him. "If you ever want coffee again, or if Ava wants another cookie." He took the card hesitantly. It only had her name on it. "No company, just a number. I'm not great at calling people," he admitted. "Then maybe I'll run into you again," she said with a smile. "Or maybe I'll drop something else." He chuckled, and for a moment, he forgot how mismatched their lives were. She climbed into the car and disappeared into the traffic. That night, Elian tucked Ava into bed and stared at the card on the kitchen counter. He didn't call, but 3 days later, they ran into each other again. He was helping a friend unload chairs at a local community center when he spotted her stepping out of a sleek black sedan in a fitted navy dress and heels. She looked completely out of place among the folding tables and plastic banners, but she was walking straight toward him. "You again," she said, stopping in front of him. "You dropped something else?" he asked. "No," she said, "but I figured if I waited long enough, you might pop up again." He laughed. "You waited here?" "I'm on the board," she said smoothly. "The center's getting new funding. I'm helping organize the gala." Elian blinked. "You're on the board?" Zariah tilted her head. "You didn't Google me, did you?" He gave a sheepish smile. "Didn't even think to." She held out a small white envelope. "The gala's in 2 weeks. I want you to come. I don't think I'm exactly black tie material. Don't worry. I already took care of that." Her eyes sparkled. "Just say yes." He hesitated. "What's this really about, Zariah?" She looked at him, serious now. "You didn't ask me for anything. Not once. You didn't care who I was. And I haven't stopped thinking about you since that coffee." Elian stared at her. "I want to see where this goes," she said softly. "Don't you?" He looked down at the envelope, then back at her. "You sure you're not making a mistake?" "I'm sure," she said. And for the first time in a long time, Elian felt his heart beat just a little faster. Elian stood outside the upscale men's boutique Zariah had written on the envelope. The name was embossed in silver, the windows lined with suits so sharp they looked like they belonged on movie posters. Through the glass, he could see rows of tuxedos and tailored jackets, a space glowing with warm light and polished floors. A man with perfectly parted hair and a tape measure slung over his shoulders stood just inside. He hadn't meant to show up. He'd held on to the envelope for days, tucked it between the pages of a book he hadn't opened in months. The idea of stepping into her world felt like trying to breathe underwater, impossible, suffocating. But curiosity had a way of getting under his skin. That, and the way she'd looked at him. Not like he was a project, or a man to be pitied. Like she saw something in him he hadn't seen in a long time. Ava was with his neighbor, Mrs. Rojas, a retired kindergarten teacher who adored her. He'd packed her a change of clothes, a lunch, and instructions to call if anything felt off. His phone was fully charged. He had no excuses left. He opened the door. The man inside turned immediately, eyes scanning Elian from head to toe. "You must be Mr. Emery," he said without hesitation. Elian blinked. "How did you?" "The lady sent word you'd be coming. She took the liberty of covering everything." The man gestured toward a plush chair. "I'm Elias. Let's get you fitted." An hour later, Elian stood in front of a mirror wearing a midnight blue tuxedo jacket with satin lapels. The pants fit like they'd been sewn onto him, and the shoes Italian leather, glossy as obsidian, made him feel like he was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "This doesn't look like me," Elian said, tugging at the collar. "It doesn't," Elias agreed. "It looks better." Elian looked at himself again. He didn't recognize the man staring back, but maybe he didn't have to. The night of the gala arrived with a chill in the air and a nervous flutter in his chest. The car that pulled up in front of his apartment wasn't just black, it was polished to a mirror shine, with a driver who greeted him by name and held the door without a word. The event was held in a museum, its grand arches lit by chandeliers the size of small cars. Inside, the air smelled like roses and champagne, and the sound of a string quartet floated above the soft hum of conversation. He felt each step echo through his shoes as he walked past towering flower arrangements and waiters balancing silver trays. He spotted her near the center of the room, speaking to a pair of older men in tailored suits. She wore a fitted deep plum gown, her hair in soft waves that framed her face, and when she saw him, she paused mid-sentence. "Elian," she said, crossing the floor toward him. "You clean up well." "I feel like I'm going to get arrested for impersonating someone important," he said. Her laugh was low, genuine. "You belong here more than half of them." "I doubt that." "Then let me prove it to you," she said, slipping her arm through his. "Come on. I want to show you off." The night passed in a blur of introductions and soft lighting. Zariah guided him through the crowd, her hand never far from his. She introduced him as a very good friend, and though the phrase was vague, the way she looked at him wasn't. During a lull, they stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city. The skyline sparkled in the distance, and the noise of the gala fell away. "So," Elian said, leaning on the railing, "are you going to tell me what exactly you do?" Zariah looked at him for a moment, then said, I'm the CEO of Rowe and Alder. He blinked. The real estate firm? She nodded. We manage a lot more than real estate these days, but yes, that's the company. Elian swallowed. That's huge. Sometimes it feels like too much, she said quietly. Why didn't you just tell me? I didn't want it to change how you saw me. He turned to face her. It doesn't. But it would have, she said, not accusing, just honest. It always does. People look at me like I'm a prize to win or a threat to outmaneuver. Or worse, like I don't belong in the position I'm in. I didn't think any of that. I know. That's why I asked you here. He studied her face, the way the city lights danced in her eyes. You're not what I expected. Neither are you, she said. A waiter appeared quietly behind them with a tray of glasses. Zariah took one, handed another to Elian. He lifted it, hesitated. To what? He asked. She met his gaze. To the unexpected. They clinked glasses, the sound sharp and soft all at once. Later, back inside, a man approached their table. He was tall, with slicked back hair and a tailored suit that looked older than it should. His eyes flicked to Elian, then settled on Zariah. I was hoping to steal a moment, he said, his tone smooth but edged. Zariah's expression cooled. I'm in the middle of something, Charles. Just a moment, he insisted, ignoring Elian entirely. We've got business to finalize. This isn't the time, she said. Then when is it? He snapped. Too low for anyone else to hear. The board is waiting on your decision. You can't keep stalling. I'll handle it Monday, she said firmly. Charles looked at Elian, eyes narrowing. You've got a lot to lose, Zariah. Don't forget that. Elian stood slowly, his voice calm. She asked you to wait. Charles looked him over with open disdain. And who are you supposed to be? I'm the one asking you to walk away, Elian said. Zariah stepped between them. Charles, go. Charles hesitated, then turned with a muttered curse and disappeared into the crowd. Elian looked at her. Want to tell me what that was about? She rubbed her temple. A deal I've been avoiding. It's complicated. You don't owe me an explanation, but I want to give you one, she said. Just, not here. He nodded. After the gala, he rode back in the car alone. Zariah had stayed behind to smooth things over with a few board members. She'd kissed him lightly on the cheek before returning inside, something that stayed with him long after the car pulled away. The next morning, Elian found a small box on his doorstep. Inside was a note written in elegant handwriting. Thank you for standing beside me. Let me return the favor. Below the note was a sleek set of keys. He stared at them, then unfolded the second piece of paper beneath the box. It was at least 6 months, rent-free for a small apartment in a better part of the city. 2 bedrooms, updated appliances, a school nearby with better ratings. No signature, just her name printed at the bottom. He set the keys down, heart twisting. She had everything. Power, money, influence. And yet she was reaching across an impossible gap to offer him something more than charity. Something real. He stood there for a long time, the morning sun creeping across the floor, trying to decide whether to step forward or turn back. Elian sat on the worn couch in his apartment, the lease and keys still on the kitchen counter like they were watching him. Afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, casting thin lines across the floor. Ava was building a puzzle on the rug, humming quietly to herself, completely unaware that her father's entire world had tilted. He hadn't accepted the apartment offer. Not yet. He hadn't even called Zariah. He needed to think. Everything had been moving too fast. One day he was elbow-deep in grocery bags and broken zippers. The next he was stepping out of a luxury car in a tuxedo that probably cost more than his rent. Now he was facing a decision that felt like it came with invisible strings, even if Zariah insisted otherwise. A knock at the door broke his train of thought. He glanced at Ava. Stay there, baby, he said, standing. When he opened the door, Zariah stood on the other side, dressed casually in high-waisted jeans and a pale sweater that looked impossibly soft. She held a paper bag in one hand, and for the first time since they met, she looked uncertain. I brought lunch, she said. Thought maybe we could talk. Elian stepped aside without a word. She entered slowly, her eyes sweeping across the small space. She didn't comment on the cracked tile or the mismatched cushions. Instead, she crouched down near Ava. I remember you, Ava said, pointing. You gave me that big cookie. Zariah's face lit up. I did. I brought grilled cheese today. Extra crispy, just how I like it. You want some? Ava nodded and returned to her puzzle. Elian watched the exchange, arms folded. Zariah turned to him. Can we sit? He gestured toward the table, and they both took a seat. I didn't mean to overwhelm you, she started. The apartment, maybe it was too much. It was, he said, not harshly, just honest. I don't want Ava to think that kind of thing just falls into our laps. She's not going to get spoiled from a better roof over her head. That's not what I mean, Elian said. I know what it's like to depend on people who can walk away. I won't do that to her. Zariah looked at him for a long moment. I'm not trying to replace anything, Elian. I'm trying to offer something. You gave me back more than a key. You gave me space to breathe and be seen. No one does that for me. He rubbed a hand over the back of his neck. I don't know how to fit in your world. Then let me meet you halfway, she said. You don't have to change. I'm not asking you to. Elian glanced over at Ava, then back at Zariah. You didn't grow up with all this, did you? She blinked. What makes you say that? You know how to talk to people. Real people. That doesn't come from years in boardrooms. Zariah leaned forward, elbows on the table. I grew up in a nowhere town with a single mom who cleaned houses and worked nights at a diner. When I was 16, I won a scholarship to a prep school 2 hours away. I'd take the train every day, wearing the same 2 blouses in rotation and praying no one noticed. Elian's voice was quieter. They notice. They did, she said. But I learned fast. How to carry myself, how to talk, how to stay 10 steps ahead. It never really stops. He studied her. So you built everything? I built it, she said. Brick by brick. And I never looked back. Until I met you. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he stood, walked into the kitchen, and returned with the keys. He set them on the table between them. I'm not saying yes yet, he said. But I'm not saying no either. Zariah reached out and closed her hand over his. That's enough for today. Later that week, she took them both out to the botanical gardens. It was a warm day, the first hints of spring in the air, and Ava ran ahead on the path, stopping to examine every flower with the awe of a child who'd never seen such colors up close. Elian walked beside Zariah, hands in his pockets. You're good with her, he said. I like kids, she replied. They make sense in a way adults don't. Yeah. They say what they mean. They tell you when they're angry, when they're sad, when they want a hug. There's no guessing. He nodded, watching Ava crouch to inspect a butterfly. I never planned to be a mom, she continued. But I always thought, if I did, I'd want it to feel like this. Elian turned to her. Like what? Simple. Honest. Safe. They stopped near a bench, and Zariah sat down. Elian joined her. I want to ask you something, she said. All right. I've got this charity event next weekend. It's a fundraiser for a school program I helped launch. It's not black tie, just a garden party, casual. I'd like you and Ava to come. Elian hesitated. You sure that's a good idea? I want people to know you, she said. Not as a story I tell. As someone I care about. He looked at her, the way her eyes didn't flinch from his, and nodded once. We'll be there. The day of the event, the garden was strung with lights, tables set with fresh flowers and linen cloths. There was music, laughter, the scent of baked goods and fresh lemonade in the air. Zariah wore a light blue dress, elegant without being flashy, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. Ava wore a white sundress and clutched a small stuffed fox, her favorite. Elian wore a button-down shirt and clean jeans, not designer, but neat. Respectable. Guests mingled, and Zariah introduced Elian and Ava to friends, colleagues, and a few teachers from the school. There were questions, of course. Polite ones. Curious ones. A few that bordered on condescending. But Zariah never flinched. She answered each one with calm certainty, never letting go of Elian's hand. At one point, a woman approached with a bright smile and too much perfume. Zariah, she said, you're kissing both cheeks. And this must be the friend you mentioned. Elian Emery, Zariah said. And this is Ava. The woman knelt slightly. Hello there, sweetheart. Are you having fun? Ava offered a small nod. The woman straightened, lips tight. She's adorable. And what do you do, Elian? He met her gaze. I raise my daughter. Oh, she said, blinking. That's noble. Zariah stepped in, voice smooth as silk. It's more than noble. It's courageous. Not everyone can do it well. The woman's smile faltered, and she moved on. Elian turned to Zariah. You didn't have to do that. Yes, she said. I did. As the sun dipped low, and the lights around the garden glowed gold against the dusk, Ava curled up on a lounge chair with her fox and drifted off. Elian sat beside her, watching the way the glow caught in Zariah's hair as she thanked donors and hugged old friends. She returned to him eventually, sinking into the seat beside him. "I think I'm in trouble," she said softly. He looked at her. "Why?" "Because I didn't plan for this. For you. For her. But now I'm not sure how I lived without it." He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out and took her hand. They sat like that for a long time, two lives no longer orbiting separately, but slowly, unmistakably, beginning to align. Rain pattered lightly against the windows of Elian's new apartment, a steady rhythm that filled the quiet. The place was still bare, boxes stacked against the walls, furniture minimal, but it was warm, clean, and most importantly his. He hadn't wanted to accept it, but after weeks of watching Ava sleep soundly in her own room and seeing her light up walking to school without crossing dangerous intersections, he'd stopped pretending this wasn't the right decision. He just hadn't said it out loud. Zariah stood by the kitchen counter, hair damp from the walk-in, her coat draped over a chair. She'd brought over takeout from a small Thai place she swore by, along with a bottle of wine that looked like it had its own passport. "Do you ever slow down?" Elian asked, watching her unpack containers. She didn't glance up. "Only when I'm here." He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "That sounds like a line." "I'm too tired to impress anyone," she said, pulling out 2 sets of chopsticks. "And you already know I can't cook." Ava was spending the night at his sister's place across town. It was the first time he'd let her stay overnight since he moved. She'd been thrilled, already plotting breakfast pancakes and cartoon marathons. The apartment felt unusually quiet without her. Zariah set the food out on the small dining table. "Sit. Eat before it's cold." He joined her, the scent of lemongrass and coconut rising between them. "Everyone keeps asking me who you are," she said after a few bites. "Let me guess," he said. "They don't believe I'm just a guy who used to fix leaky faucets and deliver groceries. They don't believe I'm happy with someone who doesn't care about any of that." He set down his chopsticks. "Do you care what they think?" "I did," she said. "For a long time. Too long, probably. And now." She met his gaze. "Now I care more about how it feels when I'm sitting across from you than what anyone else thinks." He didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything at all. Later, they shared the wine on the couch, legs tangled together, the rain tapping steadily against the glass. She leaned her head on his shoulder, her voice quiet. "I'm thinking of stepping down." He turned to her. "From the company?" "Not completely. I'd stay on the board. But I want someone else to take over day to day. I'm tired, Elian. I've built everything I was supposed to. Now I want to build something I actually want." He didn't interrupt. He let her speak. "Everyone I know wants more. More money, more power, more recognition. But I think I've finally found something I don't want to lose." He put his hand over hers. "Are you sure?" "That's a big move." "I've never been more sure of anything." The words settled between them like gravity. 2 weeks later, she made the announcement. The media exploded. Headlines speculated everything from health issues to boardroom battles. Zariah didn't answer a single call. Elian watched from the sidelines, unsure where he fit in the chaos. She came over when she could. They spent quiet evenings together, cooking simple meals, helping Ava with her reading. It was the first time in years Zariah had no schedule dictating her every breath. She was learning how to be still. One night, Elian found her sitting on the floor in Ava's room, flipping through a children's book. "She's already asleep," he said. Zariah looked up. "I used to pretend I was reading to someone when I was a kid. I'd sit on the floor and go through books out loud just to hear my own voice." He leaned against the doorframe. "You ever think about having more?" She hesitated. "Children." He nodded. "I didn't. But lately, I do." They didn't say anything else. They didn't need to. Spring melted into summer. The city came alive with color and heat. One afternoon, Zariah took them both to a lakeside cabin she owned outside the city, something Elian hadn't known existed until she tossed him a duffel bag and told him to pack light. The place was quiet, surrounded by towering trees and the sound of birdsong. Ava spent her days chasing dragonflies and helping Zariah pick wildflowers. Elian spent his watching the two of them, his chest tightening every time he caught Zariah glancing over her shoulder just to make sure they were still close. One evening, as the sky turned soft with dusk, Zariah joined him on the small wooden dock. The lake shimmered beneath them, still and glassy. "Do you remember the day we met?" she asked suddenly. "Of course. I was on my way to a meeting I didn't want to attend. I was angry. I hadn't slept. I was convinced I was going to fire someone just for breathing wrong. He laughed. Sounds about right. And then you handed me a key, she said, and smiled like I wasn't terrifying. I didn't know you were terrifying. That's the thing, she said, voice soft. You saw me before you knew anything about me. And you didn't look away. He turned toward her. I couldn't. The wind stirred the trees behind them. I love you, she said suddenly. He blinked. I didn't plan to say that tonight, she added quickly. But I've been thinking it for days, and I can't keep swallowing it. He stepped closer. Then don't. She took his hands. I love you, Elian. Not because you're different from everyone else, but because with you, I'm different. I laugh more. I sleep deeper. I'm not trying to win anything when I'm with you. I just want to stay. He pulled her closer. I never thought I'd say this again, he said. But I love you too. And I want this. Not just weekends and quiet dinners. All of it. She leaned in. Then marry me. He stared. What? Her smile broke wide. I'm asking you to marry me. You're serious. As serious as I was when I stepped down. As serious as I am about Ava. As serious as I am about this life I want with you. He laughed, stunned. You're insane. Probably. He dropped to one knee on the dock, barefoot and laughing. Then let me ask you properly. Her breath caught. I don't have a ring, he said. But I have everything else. Zariah Rowe, will you marry me? She dropped down with him, kissed him hard, and whispered, yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Ava was their flower girl. Mrs. Rojas cried through the entire ceremony. Zariah wore a dress with sleeves made of lace and no train because she hated being followed by anything. Elian wore a charcoal suit and shoes that still felt too expensive. They said their vows beneath a canopy of wisteria in the same garden where they'd first faced the world together. The guests were a strange mix of billionaires and neighbors, teachers and board members, all tangled together in a celebration no one could quite explain. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the way Elian looked at Zariah when she walked toward him. What mattered was the way Ava clutched both their hands during the ceremony. What mattered was that a man who had once believed his life had settled into quiet survival had stumbled into something extraordinary because he returned a key to a woman who didn't know she was looking for her own. And she'd found it. In him. In them. They danced until the stars came out. And then they danced some more. The morning sun streamed through the oversized windows of their new home, a restored brownstone tucked on a quiet, tree-lined street just outside the city. The move had happened quietly, over the course of a month, no grand announcement, no press release. Just them, choosing a place that felt like theirs. A place with 3 bedrooms, a rooftop garden, and enough light to make Zariah pause every time she walked into the living room. Elian stood barefoot in the kitchen, flipping pancakes while Ava sat at the island, still in her pajamas, coloring a sheet of construction paper with glitter pins. Zariah leaned in the doorway, watching them with a cup of tea clasped between her hands and a soft, unreadable expression on her face. You burned the last one, Ava said without looking up. I call it caramelized, Elian replied, flipping another pancake with exaggerated care. Zariah walked over, slid a hand across his back. If you're going to call it caramelized, you better add some whipped cream and pretend it's intentional. I like her logic, Ava said, raising her pen. Elian grinned. Noted. They ate together at the kitchen table, mismatched placemats, syrup in a bottle Ava had decorated with stickers, and a vase of fresh tulips Zariah had picked up from a sidewalk vendor the day before. The scene was imperfect in the most perfect way, a quiet joy woven into every detail. After breakfast, Zariah pulled Elian aside while Ava retreated to the living room to build a fort out of pillows and sheets. I need to tell you something, she said, setting her teacup down. He studied her face. What is it? I've been offered a position on the National Education Advisory Council. He blinked. That's federal. It is, she said. I'd be traveling a few days a month, helping rework early childhood education policies, curriculum, access, teacher funding. The whole system. That's huge. I know. You're going to take it? He asked, voice steady but unreadable. I want to, she said. But only if you're on board. He tilted his head. You're asking me like we're partners. We are. And Ava? She'd stay here. It's only a few days at a time. I wouldn't miss anything important. I cleared it with her school, and Mrs. Rojas is happy to help when I'm away. Elian leaned back against the counter. You'd be good at it. You think so? I know so, he said. You've got more heart than the entire committee put together. You'll make them listen. She stepped closer. So you're okay with it? I married a woman who builds empires, he said. I didn't expect her to build just one. She exhaled, relief coloring her features. Thank you. Just one thing, he said. When you're sworn in, I want to be there. You will be, she said, pressing a kiss to his cheek. Front row. Ava's voice called from the other room. My fort needs a king and queen. Zariah grinned and pulled him toward the living room. Duty calls. That night they lay tangled on the couch, the television flickering in the background, Ava fast asleep in her room, her fox tucked under one arm and a flashlight still clutched in the other from her bedtime adventure. Elian traced the inside of Zariah's wrist with his thumb. I've been thinking about something. That sounds ominous, she murmured. I want to open my own business. She sat up slightly. You do. I've been saving. Did some freelance repairs lately, and I've got some contacts from back when I did construction. There's a property on the east side needs work, but it's zoned for commercial use. What kind of business? A community workshop, he said. A place where people can learn to build things, fix things, teach kids how to use tools, give adults somewhere to pick up a skill without paying a fortune. We'd offer classes, partner with schools, maybe even host after-school programs. Her eyes widened. That's brilliant. I want Ava to grow up seeing that. That her dad built something, not just for us, but for other people too. She cupped his face in her hands. Then let's build it. Over the following months, they did. The space took shape slowly. Weekends spent sanding floors, painting walls, and installing workbenches. Zariah brought in a design team to help whip up a logo and website. Only after Elian insisted on naming the place The Fix simple, grounded, and honest. Ava painted a mural on the back wall with help from a few neighborhood kids. It was a mess of colors, shapes, and handprints, but Elian insisted it be left exactly as it was. The grand opening was a community event. They grilled food in the alley behind the building, set up a bounce house for the kids, and opened the doors to anyone curious. Zariah gave a short speech, and Elian followed, his voice steady as he spoke about second chances, building trust, and the quiet power of fixing more than just broken things. The turnout was bigger than expected. Later that evening, they stood alone in the quiet of the space, the lights warm overhead, the smell of sawdust still faint in the air. You did this, Zariah said. We did this, he corrected. Their kiss was slow, deep, the kind that tasted like pride and promises kept. Summer turned to fall. Zariah took the position on the council, flying out every few weeks, always returning with stories and ideas and arms full of gifts for Ava. The balance wasn't always perfect, but it was real. She brought Elian into her professional world when it made sense, and he brought her into his when it didn't. They made space for each other not by shrinking, but by growing together. Ava started first grade, her reading skills already ahead of most of the class. Her teacher called one afternoon to say she'd stood up during show and tell and told the class her mom fights for kids who don't have enough books, and her dad fixes grown-ups who forgot how to build stuff. Elian framed the note she brought home about it. One evening, as winter crept in, they stood on the rooftop garden of their brownstone, bundled in coats, mugs of cider in hand, the city lights stretching out before them. You know, Zariah said, I thought my life was already full. I didn't know there was more room. There's always more room, Elian said. You just have to let the right people in. She leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. Promise me something. Anything. That we don't stop choosing this. Not when things get hard. Not when the world gets loud. He tightened his arm around her. We won't. And they didn't. Years passed. Their lives shifted, stretched, and settled in ways neither of them could have predicted. But through it all, every scraped knee, every late-night strategy call, every school recital and city council vote, they remained anchored in the life they built together. Zariah never returned to her old role. She didn't need to. Elian's workshop expanded into a second space, and eventually a third. They hired staff, trained apprentices, and launched a scholarship fund in Ava's name for young girls interested in trades. Their wedding photo taken under golden wisteria hung above the fireplace, a quiet reminder of the day everything changed. And through every season, every challenge, every joy, they never stopped choosing each other. Always. Every time. Without hesitation.